Okay, so last time we did A.1, which is neural development, and this is jumping into A2, the human brain. So basically, this whole section is about the structure of the human brain, but also about methods that we can use to study the structure of the human brain. Some of which involve dead people. You cut up their brains, or cadaver is a nicer way of putting it, and you might look at the anatomy, or we can use brain scans, and we'll talk a bit about that too. So the last time we met, the one of the last things I said was that you should go on and look at the assignment on ManageBack that looks at the brain structure. I really do mean that. Go check it out. It's a 3D model, and I have a list of structures you'll need to know. Check it out. It's not bad. You don't have to turn in the assignment, but do go and look at the structure of the brain. It's an easy website to navigate. It's kind of cool. I think you'll like it. Okay, so today's notes. Off we go. You already know from previous videos that your nervous system consists of what we call the central nervous system, or the CNS, which includes the brain and the spinal cord, and the PNS, or the peripheral nervous system, all the nerves that go to and from the central nervous system, the stuff that extends away from brain and spinal cord out to the rest of your body. And we're going to get onto the brain in just a moment, but just a little bit more about this. So the peripheral nervous system has both somatic and autonomic pathways. And what that means is that the autonomic pathways are the involuntary responses to stimuli, reflexes, and things that you aren't thinking about. And the somatic would be the things that you're consciously doing, voluntary responses to stimuli. And the reason this matters for today is that different parts of your brain will control these autonomic or somatic responses. And so it's important to know, first of all, what those words are. So later, if I say, okay, this part of your brain is involved in autonomic functioning, you'll know exactly what I mean. So start here with those notes, and now we'll jump into the actual brain. So first off, different parts of the brain will have very different roles. And a lot of times people think of the brain as this sort of lumpy, squishy, folded part on the top here. But that's just one portion of the brain. The brain actually extends all the way down to where this green line is down here, this region that we call the midbrain. And there's also this bonus on the back called the cerebellum. And we'll talk about all of that in a second. So I'm going to start this video with what's called the brain stem. And the brain stem is all of the stuff that you see colored in here, the red, the blue, and the green. This is called the brain stem. And the brain stem consists of what we call the midbrain, the pons, medulla, and that's it. And then from there we go on to the spinal cord. So right there where the medulla ends, that starts the beginning of the spinal cord. So what the brainstem is doing is it's sort of functioning as the central relay center to take information from the spinal cord or the rest of the body and then send it and coordinate it to go out to the rest of the thinking part of the brain, which is your cerebrum, or to the sort of coordinating balance part of your brain called the cerebellum. So the brainstem is the relay center. We've already talked a bit about the medulla. You know, that's involved in heart rate. Remember, the medulla connects, it has the cardiovascular centers to modulate the heart rate. We talked about that before. Maybe go back and review that if you've forgotten. Okay, so the autonomic nervous system, or the involuntary processes, they all rely on centers located mainly in the brainstem. So that cardiovascular center was one example. But there are others, and they're all in the brainstem, and they're going to help your body do things that don't require any thought or analysis. So that's mainly what your brainstem is up to. And we're going to go over now the different parts of the brainstem. Okay, this looks like a little. If you've seen the movie Alien, you know what I'm talking about. And the little alien pops out of the guy's chest and it looks kind of like this. I'm sorry if that creeps you out. Anyway, we're going to go with this. So these are the regions of just the brainstem dissected away from the rest of the brain. And we're going to take them one by one. So first of all, starting from the bottom, and then working up. The first region, if you move from the spinal cord up here, we have the medulla oblongata, sometimes just called the medulla. Here's what it does. It regulates your breathing, your heart rate, which we talked about, other involuntary processes like coughing, sneezing, swallowing, and vomiting. And that's the big one. That's the big one we have. And the reason I'm focusing on the medulla is, well, if I look at the syllabus, really, that's the one that they really have in there. And so I'm just going to leave it there. There are other functions happening in the thalamus. There's a hypothalamus in here, midbrain pons, and since the syllabus isn't emphasizing that, and we're getting close to exams anyway, I'm just going to leave that there. So you know the medulla, you should recall it from the heart section, and here it is one more time, just below the rest of the brain stem. Okay, so moving on to a kind of another idea. We've been talking about involuntary processes. And there's another very specific type of involuntary process that we call a reflex. And so I want to talk for just a second about how a reflex will work. And so basically, in any type of communication that involves your brain, which is everything, you're always going to start with some kind of stimulus. So, for example, your eyes have receptors that will see something that you might enjoy. And so that thing that you enjoy, a glass of water. So your eyes see the water, and then you send information from your eyes, I see water, and that goes to your brain. And so basically, if you need to think about whether or not to drink the water, you send it to your brain. Your brain says, oh yeah, let's get some water. And then your brain and the rest of your central nervous system have to then communicate. So we have different types of neurons here. We have our sensory neuron bringing information into the brain. Take note of that. Then the brain is going to communicate with a motor neuron that's going to basically cause a reaction. So the brain communicates with a motor neuron that actually gets you to move. And this motor neuron is going to synapse with an effector cell, like a muscle. And remember, the muscle now is going to release calcium, troponin, tropomyosin, sliding filaments are going to move, and the muscle will contract. And as the muscle contracts, you bring the water to your mouth. So, in short, stimulus activates a receptor, which activates a sensory neuron, which your brain interprets. And that activates a motor neuron, which then causes an effect of you drinking the water. So all of this is happening in a typical relay, okay? But sometimes there is a relay that you have no decision making involved in, right? We call this a reflex. So what we just had was a decision making or conscious thought, right? That would be one of those somatic processes. But what about an involuntary process? So here's one example. It's called a reflex arc, and this actually is in the syllabus. So your eyes can also cause an involuntary response. Perhaps you've heard of pupils dilating, right? So the way that works is, instead of basically going through all of that information, you do what's called a reflex arc. And so instead of going up to the cerebrum for thinking and thought and interpretation, basically you have some stimulus from the eye, which then goes back to the brain and then immediately comes right back out to the eyeball, and it causes your pupil to dilate, right? So if you're in a dark room, your pupils will dilate. But if the light is now shined on this dilated pupil, then it will close to protect the eye from too much stimulation. Now, you don't think about your pupils dilating. You can't, well, technically, I guess you could, but your pupils also dilate when you're excited. So I guess if you think about exciting things, you might constrict your pupils, but whatever. Anyway, so if light is shined on the eye, that causes an immediate reaction. So we have stimulation of receptors in the eye. The optic nerve goes into the brain, but not to a cognitive part of the brain. We're going to an involuntary part of the brain and then immediately back out. And this is what we call a reflex arc. So for a reflex arc, we go out to an involuntary part of the central nervous system. Sometimes it's the spinal cord and sometimes it's the brain. Usually this reflex arc goes through the spinal cord, and so the brain is never involved in thinking about it, and then immediately goes out to a motor neuron. Instead of in your hand, this would be the muscles in the eye that cause that little iris to close, and that's why your pupils might contract, right? So in, immediately back out, you close the pupils without thinking about it. Cool. Okay. One other thing, not for the syllabus, not for exams, but if you shine the light in one eye, interestingly, both eyes should contract at the same time. And if that's not working, that might be evidence of damage in your central nervous system. So you know how people, when they have a concussion, you shine the light into the eye and then you switch to the other eye. What you're looking for is to make sure that both eyes will cause both of your pupils to contract at the same rate. Because if that's not happening, there's something going on back in your central nervous system, and that concussion was bad enough to mess with this all of this hardware, and that can cause serious problems. So that's what that shining the eye is about when you have a concussion. Okay, so I'm going to pause here for a second. Moving forward, we're going to talk about what's called your cerebrum or your cerebral cortex. The largest part of the brain, the most famous part of the brain, that's the thinking part of the brain. But I think this is a good time to pause and switch videos. So this is going to be the end of video 2. And then video 3 is going to pick up with the part of the brain that we use for thinking, called the cerebral cortex. So go back, review anything on these slides that you feel like you didn't quite catch. Check through the syllabus and make sure that you're on track so far. And then pick up video 3 right here at the cerebral cortex. All right, so let me try and end this video.